Hello. Today we're in the DMV, but we're doing something super janks. It's a bit drizzly, which I forgot about, but can't let a good opportunity go to waste. But today we're just gonna loop to the Foggy bottom. It's very fitting, given that it is a dreary day out in DC. But so naturally we are using a plastic bag to cover the camera. So it's just a nice added visual effect. But so the idea is, with it being raining, we'll probably just quickly loop around the State Department building, a Foggy bottom, and walk back up. So it'll be a shorter one, hopefully. So yesterday I got halfway through a new book about, it's like by Seth Hart, called The Fort Bragg Cartel, and it's incredibly damning. Pretty much how just U.S. Special Forces are full of degenerates who love killing and get away with everything, and coincidentally on his side are drug dealers. So I'm only halfway through it, but we can frame the wall. More importantly, however, I woke up at 3 in order to go, first, because it's your birthday, companies like doing giving you promos and whatnot. And there happens to be, so clearly, right, because sports books in different states have different, customer-facing apps and all that. So clearly, so you can effectively segment your customers naturally by state. And so given that my account in Pennsylvania gets a birthday reward and my account in Maryland doesn't, just shows how the Pennsylvania is a much more valuable market for these guys than little Maryland. Which, again, there's always signal. If the market is telling you something, it is telling you signal. Of course, that is funny. If you think about YouTube and YouTube views as a market, and that kind of is, if you can buy bots to give you view count to make it higher, then by extension, you can think of, so YouTube's a market. And in that case, the market has decided that my Rick and Morty video with 270K views is somewhat substantive and valuable. And who am I to say the market's wrong? Market sounds kind of smart, in fact, in that case. But, so pretty much, yeah. So I am effectively amped up. Not to the way the Special Forces guys are. Apparently the Special Forces, they all just, like, Adderall is a gateway drug, effectively. And they all literally just pump Adderall, and then they move up to, like, some, like, weird Russian pharmaceutical. And then they move into, like, cocaine and hard stuff. So, like, the book, it reads, so I'm only halfway through it, but it's structured effectively as like, there's these different Special Forces guys, and they all intersect, and it just talks, and so pretty much it walks through their stories. It's pretty much, if you're a Special Forces, like, you're a career soldier at that point. So it's literally like this one guy, how he joins Special Force X, and he gets dropped off in Afghanistan or Iraq or the Philippines and stuff like that. And then naturally they intersect as they do their drug dealing and stuff that they get away with because they're Special Forces. And it's all incredibly damning. But the funny part is when it intersects with stories that you remember hearing and reading about in general in the past. Right, like you hear about, like there's that general under Obama, who Obama fired because of that Rolling Stones article. And it turns out, like, that guy, I don't know, kind of a bad guy. Or at least he babied the special forces, effectively. Because apparently there's a big inferiority complex between special forces versus regular Joes. Whereas, like, apparently, like, because the special forces were set up effectively before, like, right before, like, the Iran hostage situation. But then because of that botch thing, there was a push to, like, make it a full thing. And so apparently, like, because there was, like, the various branches of government, apparently all of the existing branches of government were very opposed to this new special forces department, because they apparently rightfully perceived it as being, A, it would take the best guys, and then B, like, it would chip away at their influence. Oh, there's a rat. And they're clearly right, because apparently, like, this special forces, like JSOC, is apparently, there's only like 2 layers between them and the president, whereas the other groups have way more layers. So it's so personally, like, all the stories about, like, army politics are always charming, because it's a reminder that, yeah, politics are real. Or the same, like, in other countries where there's less quote-unquote political freedom. Well, all that means is just that those countries appreciate how politics actually matters in a way that doesn't necessarily happen in the US, where there's probably a lot more gamesmanship or showmanship than would be warranted, you know. But that is that arrangement. Yeah, so I'll just weave in and out, and I'll just rant about various things on this first quick little fit check. Hair's way more messy than the norm, but today we're wearing a Newcastle, as Antoine Griezmann would say in his French accent, jersey. Yeah, I figured if you're going to walk by the State Department, why not wear something that's conspicuously in the colors of Saudi? But Saudi's a good American friend, of course, so yeah. I don't know. It's always funny when people say, like, you know, the Saudi PIF buying a football club is an extension of the state. Sure, but you should kind of apply the same, like, what would you call intel? Like, literally now the government has a strong incentive to just route customers to intel, you know? Where, like, the government is literally like a put on Intel's revenue. You know, again, it's when you talk about somewhere far away that you can be honest about what is actually the case. Or not. You know, I'm sure George Washington would have something sage and wise to say about that. But jokes like, it's when you talk, like, when we're talking about China, that's when commentators are being honest about, because it's over there and it's far away and it's nothing like it is over here. But then it's like, well, I don't know. It's probably a bit more corporatism than you would fess up to. But that is that. Yeah, so the State Department, so back when the U.S. bombed Iran, that was on a Saturday night, or a Saturday. So I had the charming idea of walking by, you know, clearly, like, you see the fact pattern of what I like to do on a weekend morning. Which again is incredibly damning for what I do during my incredibly damning for my nightlife. You know, again, read in between the lines as you wish. But I decided, you know, again, like if you live in DC and you're stuck in in the heart of American bureaucracy and empire, you may as well enjoy the benefits. One of the few benefits is being in proximity to things and people that matter. You know, it's not like Philadelphia has that to the same degree. Maybe you would take Philadelphia or New York City above that. But so on that Sunday after the U.S. bombed Iran, I walked by the State Department building, and so you could see a train of cars like waiting outside at an intersection, and then you look at the guys who are in the cars. So it's a Sunday morning. So and you see guys wearing suits, you know, and that would have been 7, 8 o'clock. So it's not Sunday best, you know. So it's I wonder what these spooks are here for, and what. Yeah, then you saw, you know, the guards waving them in and all of that. So that is that. So yeah, so you can see. So you saw. Of course, I didn't. Maybe if I was a more principled person or had a more of a strong view, besides just passive distaste for bombing unilaterally, maybe, you know, I could have. I will say, to be fair, one of the State Department guys was nice and yielded to me as I crossed the parking garage entrance. I do suppose you can't really do an A/B test with the Pentagon or the CIA, given how far they are. So I suppose that if any government department needs to be the more public transit friendly one, it does kind of make sense that it's the State Department and a bunch of Georgetown punks that I work there or whatever. Yeah, but the book is incredibly damning. It is so damning, and it's also like there's moments like of black humor in it, unintentionally, that it goes to. But for example, one of the generals was talking about how many troops were in Syria, and apparently there's a guy misspoke and said there were 4,000 when the public line was that there was 503. And so like he does, of course the issue is it's a book, so it's not like a nice Substack where he can hyperlink to it and just make the irony and humor all the more blunt. But you can look it up and like, okay, but sure, the government lies to you, blah blah, but then it's the same way that management consultants can speak in such a, or just bad, like management teams that are bad just end up parroting certain lines over and over, like value enhancement or whatever, like Harvard Business School spiel. We have that, and like those, you know, you can hear the cliches, and a cliche is a cliche. Like, okay, but when a cliche is literally like killing people, or not even killing people, but killing people as a KPI, like that is fury. It's sort of like that quote about like once the thing becomes the tool of measurement, it's no longer a good tool to measure. And it's cool. I don't know. When General McChrystal's idea of a good plan or throughput is really just how many night raids can we do in Iraq, and how many confirmed kills do you get? And it's like, okay, I now see why a special forces guy ends up killing entire village just to get their KPI up. You know, and again, that's just incredible. Like that's so literally like the entire point of a like McChrystal had some like acronym, and the entire point was effectively you've got to kill a bunch of you know, to keep the Iraqi insurgents on their toes. You have to kill a bunch, you know, so they can't feel safe or whatnot. And then, so literally though, it turned into, you go into a place, you kill everybody, you look for notebooks, or you tap the phone lines to find who that person's connected to. And then, and so it's literally a machine. It's literally like, you think about like a private equity firm and the throughput dynamic you have, and it's like, that's the dynamic you have over there. As again, like it's literally management consultant speak, but incredibly jury. But State Department building. But so it's literally like it was literally a KPI setup. Again, it's not exaggerating that the idea is the KPI was for the special forces. Yeah, thank you. Where the KPI for special forces guys was literally like that's jury. And again, you know, like not like Obama had a issue with it. So it's incredibly damning. That's Iraq. Special force, other bad things they did. Yeah, the other thing, again, I think I have like the generic concept of like being honest, and being honest is okay. As long as you can, you know, it's like if you're a bad guy but you're honest, I'm cool with that. And it's like, if you're a bad guy and you're honest, that's cool. But when McChrystal was lying, and so he would go on press tours, and he'd be like to the regular soldiers, "No, you can't. You have to show restraint, and you can't shoot civilians in XYZ." But then he was literally the guy pushing for it and authorizing all of this special forces extra killing. And, you know, that's just completely duplicitous. That's, like, if you're going to kill people, you know, you should be honest about it. And again, by the same extension, you're also, you know, kind of screwing over the regular schmucks, you know, the grunts. So it's, again, just, I don't know, damning. But again, so again, it is funny walking around Foggy Bottom, or I guess here. So A, you notice A, B, A, the lack of good food options around here. And then, that is one thing. Like the White House, you've got food options, but you don't have food options around here, obviously. Or like, because you really got like the National Mall on that side. It's like, I suppose you could pay for overpriced food truck, but I don't know. I could probably think of something, or it's not like, I don't think the guys at the White House have to deal with the like food options. The boys at the Pentagon, they've got like 10 pizza joints next to them, so they're good, you know. So I look at that. Even the State Department has rat catcher things. Yeah. So. Yeah. So it's a funny thing about just like It's like how many bad decisions and how many people have died as a result of bad policy choices in this building over here by people who genuinely have no regard for other countries or live in a clustered bubble and just fail to appreciate basic realities or things. And again, it's like, I don't know, it's hard to know the body count when you know the body count is literally hidden. For example, we don't know like in that Iraq surge, like how many people died as a result of it. Because again, like at a certain point, they loosely stopped keeping track on paper in order to avoid any like leaks or whatnot. But they were still doing it. And so there's literally like the joke was, or the other point that's interesting, just back to the point about like just like conceptually, right? Like intra-organization politics are always interesting. It's because like naturally, because it's inside an organization, like you're just not going to hear about it as much. So it's always funny about like the military intra-politics stuff, or is just naturally leaks into the public. And then back to our point about like the other branches not being fans of this new setup. And it's, well, so there's one line where like at some point like the entity grew, like JSOC grew to like 70K, which is literally the size of the UK, United Kingdom's military. Protects and advances American interests. So Seth Harp, he's kind of become he's a decent Twitter follower, Twitter follow, but again, like the book is incredibly damning, and it just like, and the best part is he does occasional drive-bys where he'll mention like Libya and Gaddafi and then Hillary Clinton, and it'll literally be like 2 sentences, and then it moves on, and you think that like he briefly describes what happened to Libya, and how Libya is now a failed state which has open slave markets, which is like a big thing, you would think. But he has here's a nice little park actually. A nice thing in this park actually. So again, maybe some people felt bad about their choices in this little park here. And there's a nice little overpass along the way. So I think there's of course the annex on that side. So I walked down that street one time before. It's not obvious if like you feel a bit uncomfortable because like as much as I am a thrill seeker, I clearly I'm not pushing the line in any way. So today I'm not a punk. I just don't want to be stuck in the rain. I do kind of want to finish the book, so I'll walk by it. But yeah, so it's literally like this little that little block is literally the heart of how many bad ideas have gone X many people killed at some point. Again, like that's not an unfair metric. Like you could be in, like I think it's reasonable to at least as just like a thought experiment, think about going to a company X and be like, well, you walk into Microsoft's headquarters, you'd be like, well, I've created software that X people have spent X hours in Excel. Like, okay, maybe that's good or bad for the world. It's probably a net good, because Excel is wonderful. But it's fair. You go to nonprofit, like, well, how many people did you save today? How many people has this nonprofit saved? So it's a legitimate talking point, or it's a legitimate framing. And so the same way, I could walk into, I don't know, the Watergate Hotel and think, okay, like, this is where Nixon got messed up. It feels reasonable to apply the same standard to the State Department. And well, you guys got X many people killed in place Z. And if you don't like it, could have chose different policies, eh? I don't know. Whenever George Washington bust. But that is the State Department. So again, back to the other point, like, I do suppose a diplomatic building can only ever look so cool. But can't really say that one looked that impressive. So I guess we could have walked a bit more, and we could have walked by the Albert Einstein statue head. But if anybody should protest, there's always been strange when people complain about college kids protesting. It's like, if anybody, like, I don't know. You can't brag about having freedom of speech and the right to protest, and country X doesn't have that right, and therefore country X is bad. You simultaneously complain about people, using that liberty that you brag about. You can't have it both ways. By extension, it's, I don't know, some hypocrisies of it. Not too much. But again, to make it clear, in case it wasn't, like, the ice raids are a bit distasteful. Is probably like the most generic, like, moderate thing you can say, but I don't know. Generally, it seems like, again, I hate to quote some schmuck like Adam Serwer. I hate to do it, but it is like, the cruelty is the point. He had that article titled something like "The cruelty is the point." And again, like, I'm sure Server has points in that piece, which probably I won't subscribe to all of it. So I do think, like, he aptly identified a core aspect, or certainly the spectacle, the act of being seen, I think is very true and present. I think some of the ICE stuff, like, you can't not do it. But again, back to, like, the intra-politics stuff, like the raid on the Hyundai facility and you're arresting Korean nationals, but at the same time, you're coercing South Korea. I should just say Korea, as you know. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Right, but you're coercing South Korea to invest X dollars in the U.S. And, but you're arresting Korean workers that are needed for said facilities, and they can't make said facilities work because they can't get the visas in order to make it work. And I don't know. Seems like bad policy. But again, the federal government is a huge bureaucracy, right? Look at that. There's a bigger George Washington bust. We'll bring it on. No, and so I do suppose it's tough if you've never worked in a larger organization or any professional entity where there would be tensions. Like, even if it's a small org, if you have like 2 different departments or 2 different heads, you can kind of see how there's tension and all of that. In that setup. And actually, like, it's just like the joke about like every happy versus unhappy family, right? Like, every happy family is the same, every unhappy one's different. The same goes for organizations, right? Every good, well-functioning organization has certain core principles, and every dysfunctional one is different. And I don't know. Federal bureaucracy is probably somewhat dysfunctional. Like, you certainly think about why there is like the Doge argument. You know, there's a perception that it is. But again, like, you saw like all the leaks, all the stories, all of, like, the, you know, back when there was all those Politico articles about Pete Hegseth and people getting fired. It's like, yeah, it's probably something, some intra-politicking going on, you know. So that's that. Yeah, I don't know. The book is just, because so much of it is just focused on the things that these specific special operators did. And so I think he does a good job by focusing on what these specific guys did, not trying to make it like more than make it something bigger, or make it something that's, you can certainly imagine trying to make it a bigger indictment. So, but he does a good job just focusing on those core things, and of course he does the little broadsides, the quick side passes for various things. But because it's so micro focused, it's like, I don't really want to rehash like how the one guy killed the other guy, and they were clearly, you know, drugged up to the gills, and that's just not, you know, it's a bit harder to have a narrative or a grand rambling about something like that. But it's a good read. I haven't listened to the guy's Seth Harp's podcast appearances, but I do think, and he does point out that, like, again, so much of the special forces stuff is and was and still is literally buried and not hidden, or it is hidden, and it's certainly not part of a public narrative, right? Like when Bush said they were winding down Iraq, but they were ramping up the special forces judicial killings at night. It's like, you know. But again, right, but to live in DC and to presume, like, walk past some people involved in making these decisions that, you know, end up killing women and children. I don't know. There's some moral question. Unfortunately, I am not that sophisticated. to rationalize or think they're the cognitively consistent thing. Instead, I just I just quote, "Have you read Jean-Paul Sartre? Or have you read Hegel?" And it's like, and I just name dropped a name and call it a day. But again, right? What's the point of intellectualizing if you can't flex the intellectualizing? So, small things. On the other side, on the much more lowbrow thing, there is always the comedic bit in a cartoon where like the cartoon guy sees like a beautiful woman and like his eyes or their hearts or just like literally like a wooga sound. And I've come to appreciate that aspect. I have come to appreciate doing that. Okay, so I guess my version of it a bit is just slapping yourself on the face. Just taking a deep breath. I don't know. I think it's funny. Like if you're in high school, that would be such a great bit to do with your friends. And then secondly, I don't know. It's just another way to have variety, right? The same way like growing up as a kid, you could do like if you see a Volkswagen, hit somebody, that thing. It's like, I don't know. Slapping yourself on the face, just taking a deep breath. Feels okay. Yeah, that's probably not a bit. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's the road that leads to catcalling. This is, Maybe we all just reinvent the wheel. So. I suppose I could hang out a bit longer, but I'm not sure what walking path I would do. I would walk, so we could walk past the DuPont. I'm not that interested in walking by the White House or National Mall because I just don't think that part is that interesting. Kind of want to make so I decided, on your birthday, right? That means that you have one less year of compounding, So I decided that, in order to make the most of my remaining years of compounding, I should have better tools at my disposal. So for my birthday, I got myself a subscription to Ticker, which is effectively Cap IQ, and it uses Cap IQ data, but it's not $50,000, which, as it turns out, is a pretty good value prop when you think about it. So I got that. So I spent a couple, and of course, you finagle a discount, and so it works out. So I got that for my birthday. Yeah, such a jovial present. So pretty much then I've just been not doing full-blown sectors because you can only have 75 names on a watch list, which is very annoying. Because if I want to have like a telecom master list, I can't do that. Because the US has like 10 telecoms, and then effectively every big country has like 2 or 3. And then you have Hungary has a Deutsche Telekom subsidiary. It's pretty good. We have Singapore's telco, right? So it's very annoying to have to segment lists. But the big thing is you can see, again, right, because it's pulling from Cap IQ, you can pull valuations. You can just have the median and average and all that. So I do think it's just a good exercise to go through. B, because like it takes effort to create a watch list, and because you can only have 75 names, it forces you to have a stack. Like effectively, like if I'm making a watch list, I'm doing it for a subsector, and therefore it's a good way to know which subsectors I'm interested in, that I'm willing to take the time to make the subsector for. So it's like I do not have that much interest in like hardcore industrials. Like I really don't want to make it. I'm not that interested in making a list of TransDigm and its peers. I am interested in making a list of U.S. banks, international banks, consumer tech, telecom. I do find telecom so interesting. Insurance companies, asset managers, apparel. You know, it's something I should do. I should just like do like a return comparison of, say, like the index version for each of the JIC sectors, and I should see like, well, which ones line go up more? Because I think the joke about financials is like financials aren't that great an investment. To which I say, there's probably some. Speaking of banks, hey, Citi's a good one, eh? And now it is, right? Now that the price to book is like 1x or 2x or whatever. It's a good bank. It's no longer a bad bank. It is funny, like the reflexivity that is intrinsic to banks. I guess it makes sense if banks can have bank runs, or it's all about loan demand and perception of the economy. So then everything's reflexive. But so you could make that argument. But certainly again, like price versus sentiment is always jarring. But that was the State Department. Again, DC, right? Homeless, State Department, White House.